All right, part 2, chapter 17, history 1520. Nomadic empires and Eurasian integration. We're noting how the Mongols tended to denigrate or put down the ethnic groups who were native to China, especially the Han, right, second-class subjects. They put themselves above them and brought in some foreigners. This is where you get the real Marco Polo, okay, not just a swimming pool game, okay. So foreign experts coming in to govern over the Chinese themselves. Once the Chinese reestablished native rule under the Ming, they're going to re-Sinicize. That's a big word meaning make China Chinese again, get rid of the Mongol names, get rid of Mongol food, get rid of Mongol customs, get rid of Mongol culture in general, and go make China Chinese again. Okay? Actually, the Ming, who follow the Mongols, that's the dynasty, mid-1300s and mid-1600s, that really build up the Great Wall of China to try to keep these guys out, right, once the Mongols leave, so they cannot come back. So, the Mongols in China largely converted to Buddhism, kind of a Lamaist or Tibetan form of Buddhism, but elsewhere they tended to convert to Islam, or in Russia they did not convert in any large numbers as far as I know. Orthodox Christianity, they tended to retain their shamanistic, almost animistic beliefs, okay, less dogmatic, and belief in ancestor worship, spirit worship, nature spirits, etc. So, what did the Mongols accomplish? There's integration across this vast Eurasian, European Asian continent from east to west. There's trade. The Mongols had reopened the Silk Roads. Pax Mongolica it's called, right? So warring states are now at peace most of the time with one another. The Mongols control much of it and encourage trade, right? Protect business. Why? Because the Mongols taxed business. Unlike, well, some countries today perhaps that tax people like me and you, and big businesses get a tax break. Excuse me. They tax business. So they had to protect business, right? They tax business and in return they offer protection. So they could travel from really one end of the empire to another. So it's great. There's trade opening up, east and west, right? The Silk Roads are reopened. What's moving in addition to commodities? Beliefs, okay? Sufi Islam, Muslim missionaries are on these roads, and actually sea lanes as well, carrying their interpretation of Islam, which historians tend to believe was more flexible and tolerant. That may not always have been the case, but Sufis tended to stress the similarities between their version of Islam and the religion of the target population. Okay? This kind of idea of God is love no matter what God's name is in your faith. Nestorian and Catholic Christians, different versions of Christianity, also on these routes. In fact, a fellow named William of Rubruck makes it from France to Mongolia. It's after Genghis Khan's reign, but he tries to convert the Khan to Catholicism. And the Khan basically is like, that's interesting, but we have a lot of religions here, you're welcome to stay. By the way, how can we sell things to France? Right? Helps to open up business and trade and communication. Rubruck was actually traveling for the King of France, wanted to know more about these Eastern people. So we see, ideas as well as goods traveling. Lamaist Buddhism, as we've mentioned already, especially in the Far East. The resettlement of experts. On the first page of chapter 17, which I don't have in front of me, there's some fellow named Guillaume Boucher. I've never heard of him before other than Bentley Ziegler Salter's textbook, to be honest with you. Who is he? He was a goldsmith. He's a French guy who's working in Eastern Europe, captured by the Mongols. And before they kill him, they basically go, what are you good at? He's like, I can make jewelry. We're not going to kill you. Go to Mongolia and make jewelry for the, for the royalty, for the nobles, because we don't know how to make jewelry, right? So he gets to live, and somehow he actually marries a European woman in Mongolia. It's all kind of really interesting stuff. Stuff that students often fail to read. Those textbooks kind of long and dry, right? Why should I read the whole thing? I'll just skip what I can. No, don't skip those things. Those little biographies are in there to generate a sense of historical empathy. Like, this could have been you living in the 12th century, 13th century in this case. So, we see goods, we see ideas or religions, but we also see disease, right? And in the mid-14th century, a pocket of plague is going to open up somewhere in Egypt and spread along those renewed Silk Roads all the way into Europe, even beyond where the Mongols had established a presence. to have a very devastating impact. This would be called the Black Death. Okay? And if we think this COVID thing is bad now, we're going to do a little more research on the bubonic plague of the mid-14th century, the Black Death. They didn't know the cause. They had no idea of science, very little idea of science, okay? So they blamed Jewish people. I mean, the Christians blamed the Jewish people for so-called poisoning the wells. Some folks blamed themselves, some thought it was God's wrath. It was actually a pathogen carried by fleas living on the backs of black rats, biting people, okay? In a sense, kind of like a Lyme disease today, okay? Though much different epidemiology. So great fear, all right? We know what's causing this COVID thing. We know how to protect ourselves. Just do it, okay? Hunker down and study your history and we'll get through this all right. So we don't need to have this fear. Certainly scapegoating. The scapegoating now of certain ethnic groups like you guys caused this, blah, 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 which is not the position an educated person like you should be taking, right? So unfortunately, we'll be talking about the Black Death next time. Right? So great. These Silk Roads are moving trade and ideas, but also rats carrying fleas, carrying a bacillus. Oh, crap, okay? The mortality rates will be quite high. In some cities, it might even have approached 50%. 50% of cities. In a rural area, less deadly, okay? Less infection. And we're kind of seeing that, certainly not that high level of infection or mortality, thank God. But we're seeing kind of the same pattern now, right? In more rural areas, small towns, less prevalent. I think there are 22 cases in Chautauqua County. We're pretty rural. In downstate metropolitan area, yes, much higher rates. Not just more people, but higher percentages. So stay tuned for that. What are we going to look at next time? The decline of the Mongols. Oh, that was quick, right? The Mongols, like the Genghis Khan, the Khanate of the Great Khan here in green, Mongolia to northern Vietnam, Korea, not to Japan though. And here the Khanate of Changadhi, over here the Khanate of Persia, and in purple the Khanate of the Golden Horde, which I don't really get. So, hi, this is my cat Dewey. I know all the professors' animals are now making guest appearances. Say hi to our YouTube audience. YouTube people love cats, and I love cats because they chase away black rats that carry fleas. Okay, so no plague for us. You got to segue when you can. All right, this is where we'll pick up next time. We're going to move right now into a little bit of video. If the video doesn't come through clearly, YouTube, CNN, Millennium, 11th century. Some people have digitized that. It'll be a little clearer. Looking at about 8 minutes here from chapter 16. Okay, this will be the two worlds of Christendom, stuff I didn't have time to do previously. That's a good review because this stuff is happening concurrently, right? We create chapters for our own convenience. So, you know, as the Turks are on the move, the first wave of Turks are on the move from Central Asia into Abbasid Persia, that's about the same time as the Christian church is splitting between Catholic and Orthodox. Okay? So this stuff's happening at the same time, even if it's different chapters. So here's a look back at chapter 16. The two worlds of Christendom. See you next time.
The edge of Europe, the edge of the world. The year 1000 held terror for Christians.
Perilous times for hand for many souls. When the millennium approached, almost the whole world suffered the loss of great men, noble laymen, and clerics.
(1033) was the 1000th anniversary of Christ's crucifixion. From across Europe, pilgrims came to Jerusalem seeking salvation. Then as now, this was the holy city of the peoples of the book. Muslims shared it with Jews. Christians claimed it also.
At this time, an innumerable multitude of people from the whole world, greater than any man before could have hoped to see, began to travel to the sepulchre of the Saviour at Jerusalem. Many wished to Lucia Galilei. When some consulted the more watchful of the age as to what was meant by so many people, in numbers unheard of in earlier ages, going to Jerusalem, some replied, cautiously enough, that it could portend nothing other than the advent of the accursed Antichrist, who, according to divine testimony, is expected to appear at the end of the world.
But the world did not end. When the pilgrims reached Jerusalem, they found Christianity divided. Rival traditions from all over Christendom worshipped in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Years later, they still worship here, but every column and candle is jealously fought over. They do not even trust each other to hold the keys to the door. For 800 years, the same two Muslim families have held them, locking it each evening and opening it the following day. In the 11th century, Christianity was divided into two rival camps. The Western Catholic Church looks to Rome, the Eastern Orthodox Church to Constantinople. Hagia Sophia was the headquarters of the Eastern Church. It was rich, cultured, and urbane. The Western Church was jealous of its wealth and held its priests in contempt.
These soft, effeminate men with large sleeves, who wear tiaras and turbans, who are liars, eunuchs, and lazybones. They go about clad in purple.
In Western Christendom, churchmen consider themselves the true custodians of the doctrine of Christ, handed down in Rome. In 1054, years of political wrangling reached a climax. The Pope issued a bull excommunicating the Eastern Church. The split confirmed a deep cultural divide. The West had many great centers of learning, but much of Europe was still covered by forest, deep and uncharted. Here, Christians felt isolated, as the Pope acknowledged.
Of Europe, the last region of the world, we Christians inhabit only a small part. For who will give the name of Christians to barbarians who live like whales on the icy ocean?
On the northern fringes, Christians eked out a living. Beyond their settlements, the unknown began. Wolves and brigands lurked in the depths. Christ was one God amongst many. Pagan beliefs lived on. Christ was not a distant figure, but a warrior knight who fought pagan evil.